Washoe County Library System welcomes you to our monthly series from the Nevada Historical Society, presents High Noon with Neal Cobb. This afternoon's topic is about the Chamber of Commerce lecture by Dr. Joyce Cox. My name is Samantha, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. And now I would like to introduce Sherry Hayes Zorn with the Nevada Historical Society. Again, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, and thank you for everybody attending today's High Noon program. We love having this program and really appreciate the Washoe County Libraries hosting our event to make it available, plus archiving it. And we do have the archive videos as well on our website. But without further ado, let me introduce our star of the show, our Neal Cobb, which the program is named after. And Neal has been a longtime supporter of the Historical Society and all things Nevadan. And we've made him an honorary curator. So he's very passionate about history and programming, and we all benefit from it. So without further ado, let me introduce Neal Cobb. Hi, Neal.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. Our speaker today, Joyce Cox, wonderful little lady. Joyce has lived in the Truckee Meadows on and off for the last, since 1974. She has worked as a research librarian in Washington, California, and Nevada. Joyce has written articles for the Nevada and the West magazine, HARPS Footprints. Now, HARPS is an acronym that stands for Historic Reno Preservation Society, a local organization that's done a lot of good work. She participates with their online encyclopedia and the biographies for Nevada Women's History Project, and is an author of Images of America, Washoe County, 2011, and an image of Sparks, 2017. Her latest book, to hopefully come out in the spring of 2021, is Behind the Arch, the story of Reno, Nevada's unique Chamber of Commerce, and the making of the biggest little city in the world. Joyce's talk today will illustrate how Reno and Northern Nevada were advertised and promoted from the 1920s through the 70s. Publicists used booklets, pamphlets, billboards, slogans, along with television and radio commercials, and even special events to promote Reno. Slogans such as the metropolis of 100,000 square miles of opportunity. In the 1920s, think Reno, always good thinking. In the 1960s and 70s, and of course, the biggest little city made Reno known around the world. Now, when Eric and I asked Joyce to take over for the First Lady, that was just absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of material that had to go, and she didn't have time to do anything else. Fortunately, Joyce came to the rescue. She's accumulated such a pile of research that it has got its own section up at the Historical Society for further use for people that really want to find out what made the city of Reno. So at this time, please welcome our guest today, Joyce Cox.
Thank you, Neal. Let's see if I can get this going here. As Neal said, I've been working on this book for quite a while, and I've done 2 manuscripts of it, one with about 250 photographs or images telling about the history of the Chamber of Commerce, and one that is pretty much text, and I'm having a hard time getting it. There it is. All right. So what I wanted to do today is to tell you how Reno and actually Washoe County and even Nevada were advertised from about 1920 to about through the 1970s. So first of all, who was responsible for this advertisement? Who really participated in advertising Reno and Washoe County and the state of Nevada? Well, in Nevada, the cities and the counties and the state all participate in advertising their county or their area. But also the chambers of commerce throughout the state and other civic groups would be involved in this promotion. One of the big questions is who paid for it? Well, advertising is expensive, as we all know. And who was responsible for paying for this advertisement? In 1915, there was a Nevada law that said that there was kind of an advertising tax that allowed counties to use money from their general fund to advertise. In 1925, this advertising tax said that you could advertise agricultural, mining, and other resources, progress, and advantages of your county. Well, that's kind of a broad statement. So really, what was advertised at the time? Some of this money would be given to the chambers of commerce for this publicity. In the 1940s, the Reno Chamber received money from Southern Pacific Railroad to advertise. And they also received a donation from, actually a couple of donations from the Herald's Club to advertise. By 1955, room tax revenue was allotted to the chamber for convention promotion. Beginning in 1959, Reno, Sparks, and Lake Tahoe casinos would pay an extra fee to the chamber for advertising. So that's kind of a short story of what was paid for. So now, what was advertised? Were you going to advertise? I mean, it said agricultural, mining, and other resources. Well, what does that include? Well, you can advertise the county for different industries. You can advertise the county for weather. What was the weather like? You can advertise that. You can promote that. You can advertise all the recreational activities that can go on within the county. But this kind of changed throughout the years. So we'll start with 1920. And in 1920, the city and the county and the Chamber of Commerce wanted to promote the area as a good place to do business and a good place to live. And at that time, they started a nationwide advertising program, which is pretty early for a nationwide program, to get people to visit the area and to get people to move here. They wanted, Nevada at that time was really small, and so they wanted people to move here. In 1920, the Charles Knight, who was the manager of the chamber, said that the average traveler who stayed overnight in Reno spent from $10 to $15 per night. So $10 to $15 doesn't seem like a lot, but it's really, if you look at $20, that's about $130 per night. So it was big business to get a tourist to stay here. He also said that tourists were the best all-around advertisers because his friends and their friends get the news by word of mouth, and that Reno cannot afford to allow this business to go by her door. So they were looking for tourists early on. Charles Norcross, who was a member of the chamber, told the city that every family moving to the city permanently was worth at least $1,000 to the city. Well, again, maybe $1,000 isn't that much. It would be about $13,000 in 2020 dollars. So they were advertising. This would give money to the city and money to the businesses within the city to have tourists come. In 1924, the chamber became a sponsor of the Transcontinental Highway Exposition that was supposed to be in 1926. And they knew that this event would bring a lot of people into the city and into the state. So they wondered how they could advertise to get these people to maybe stay here. And what they voted on was that they were going to capitalize on fishing. That was the one recreational activity that they were going to advertise. fishing in the Truckee River, fishing in Lake Tahoe, and fishing in Pyramid Lake. It was said that if this was done, Reno would become a great tourist center. So actually what they were advertising was the recreation that was available in the area. Okay, so this photo shows what Virginia Street looked like in 1925. So this is what everyone was advertising. You don't see anyone fishing there yet, but that's what they were advertising, was fishing. This photo appeared in the Nevada State Journal in July of 25 in an article that was written by John F. Ness. His article is on Reno, its past, present, and future. Well, Ness was the publicity chair for the Chamber of Commerce and the advertising manager of the Nevada State Journal. And so he was big on advertising the area, and what he wanted to tell people was that Reno was a fast-growing and rapidly approaching era of prosperity. It was considered a distributing and trading center for the Intermountain regions, as well as the recreational center of America. He went on to say that Reno is the financial and professional center of Nevada, a city beautiful with 20 miles of paved streets in 1925, 3 beautiful parks, it had city and county buildings, and mercantile establishments that would do credit to a city of a much larger population. Ness was also responsible for another little booklet called Reno, the Recreational Center of America. He was big on slogans. He said, Nevada is the land of today, where life is young and nature holds her most precious treasure chest of vast riches. Here the horn of plenty awaits the deserving. For the seeker of the more beautiful of things in nature, you will find all the romance in Nevada, a country where the spirit of the real West still lives. Now, the article that he wrote and also this little booklet were meant to publicize the area to those coming to the Transcontinental Highway Exposition. So he was they were really trying to get the people to come here for that. And he talked about the climate, and he said that the climate was glorious. There were other brochures that were written at the time that said that Reno had at least 78% of its days have sunshine. The number of days without a cloud in the sky, 195. The number of days that are partly cloudy, 105. And the number of days that are cloudy, 65. And then he said there are no thunderstorms, hail, fogs, or earthquakes. Now that may not be really true, but anyway, he was telling people that. Ness also wrote travel articles. So when people got to the area, they would know where they could stay in Reno for their $10 to $15 per night and travel around the area and then come back to Reno. He also used the slogans, Reno is the hub of scenic grandeur of the West and even the hub of scenic grandeur of America. So these are some of the slogans that were used in the 1920s. The first two, the metropolis of 100,000 square miles of opportunity and the 1 square man for each square mile of territory, were written specifically for the highway exposition. They were written to tell people that Nevada has land, lots of land. If you come to Nevada, you will get at least 1 square mile for the metropolis of 100,000 square miles of opportunity actually probably began in about 1919. There was a United States Rubber Company contest that asked contestants throughout the United States to write a 30-word history of his or her town. And the winner in Reno was Evelyn Walker. She was a university student, And in her 30-word history, her last 9 words were that Reno was the gateway to 100,000 square miles of opportunity. Really, Nevada has about 740,000 square miles. So it was a little bit small, but that 109,000 was probably too many words to add to her 30-word history. The chamber probably, because they were judges in this contest, probably adopted this or modified this slogan to the metropolis of 100,000 square miles. This 100,000 square miles would be amended through and used again throughout the 1940s. And of course, 1 square man to each square mile of territory. I don't know where the square woman was, but there was at least, that was said by the chamber manager in 1924. Another one that they used in 1924 was, or in the 1920s, was Reno, the eastern gateway to Lake Tahoe, Yosemite National Park, and Lassen Volcanic Park. Reno, throughout the 60 years that we're looking at, used at least 5 different gateway slogans, and they were all to a different place. This one was used at least in 1927. It was on the letterhead for the Chamber of Commerce, saying that Reno, if you come to Reno, you can always go to a lot of other places from Reno itself. All roads lead to Reno was another slogan that was used. But in 1924, there was an advertised Reno committee that was part of the Chamber of Commerce, and they decided that another slogan needed another slogan. And so one of the people that belonged to that committee said, you know, why don't we just use "You'll Like Reno"? And he got $15 for this. That was the contest, and he was the winner. "You'll Like Reno" would be used again from the 1920s through the 1940s. It was used in the 1920s on a 10-gallon hat that was blue, and the letters were silver. So it was in the Nevada's colors. For the Transcontinental Highway Exposition, it was modified to "You'll Like Nevada, Meet Me in Reno" in 1926. The person that suggested this name was James N. Floyd, and he even wrote a poem about his slogan, where he said, "If you're seeking a location where no joys in life you'd lack, you'll find our city's slogan, 'You'll Like Reno' is a fact." This is what the city looked like in 1927 for the Highway Exposition. So this is what was being advertised. And this is what the city looked like when, in 1929, when the Reno, the biggest little city slogan was adopted. Now, how did all this advertisement help Reno in this decade, in the 1920s decade? Well, Reno grew by at least 50% in that 10 years to 18,500, and it began to solidify its position as the state's financial and commercial center. So these are some of the slogans in the 1930s, and we all know in the 1931, Nevada passed its 6-week divorce law and also the legal gaming law. But these laws brought a lot of lurid publicity, and the advertising had to kind of get around the publicity. So something else had to be advertised besides gaming and besides divorces. So what the chamber decided to do and what the city decided to do was they were going to promote Reno's picturesque features and its cosmopolitan character and sophistication. And again, they were going to advertise the year-round recreation that was available. In 1931, the International Christian Endeavor Society called Reno a blot on civilization. It went on to say that Reno and what it is doing presents a distinct menace to the ideals and concepts for which this country has always stood. Anything such as is being done in Nevada tends to undermine the permanence and strength of the home and is a disintegrating force in the corporate life of the country. So the chamber and the city and the state of Nevada all had to advertise something besides gaming and divorces. So as I said before, they would promote the Reno's picturesque features and its cosmopolitan character. Brochures and booklets were published that promoted Reno as a good place to start up a business or to relocate here. And again, Reno as a year-round vacation spot. And it was also pointed out that Reno was a great place to live. The chamber published little booklets like this, Reno, Land of Charm. There, in 1935, the national advertising campaign, the committee members said that what they were trying to do is let other people know the Reno that we know. We want to tell them about the magnificent recreational attractions of which Reno is the center and emphasize its geographical advantages and its location on three main transcontinental transportation lines: highways, railroads, and airways. In 1935, the Nevada State Journal reported that the competition is keen for the favors of potential tourists, and no region has more to offer than can be found right here in Nevada, the last frontier. So they were still advertising Reno and Nevada as being part of the Western heritage. In 1934, the Federal Communications Act was passed that said that restricted advertising of gambling. You could not advertise that one could win prizes or money through games of chance. So something else besides gambling had to be advertised to get people here. So what was usually advertised was recreation, as we've seen before, entertainment, and of course the weather. There were many events that were in the 1930s, and this is the 1939 Reno Rodeo, a specialty act at the Reno Rodeo. The Reno Rodeo brought in 1939, their three-day event, 6,500 people came to Reno. All the hotels and motel rooms were full, and the chamber was asking residents to provide additional rooms in their homes for all of these people coming in. The slogan for the rodeo was the West's greatest show in the biggest little city. And they were still advertising fishing. This young girl, this is from a postcard that was put out by the chamber in late 1930s. And it says, the little mountain stream, Truckee River, flows right through the heart of Reno. Fishing is good right in the business district or in the many parks along the river. I'm not sure if this young lady was fishing exactly, but she looks nice standing there on a rock. There was also fishing at Virginia Lake. Virginia Lake opened in 1938, and the first day they had a fishing, you could fish. They advertised skiing at Galena Creek, and they advertised golfing. A Washoe County Golf Course opened in 1936. It was said it would be a great benefit to the city, and it could be used for golf tournaments and conventions. Washoe County Golf Course was 6,601 yard, 18-hole championship, all grass greens, tees, and fairways. And putting the weather in with this, golf is enjoyed at least 9 months out of the year. This photo probably comes from the late 40s or early 50s. of a tournament that was held at the Washoe County Golf Course with a $15,000 prize and brought in golfer Ben Hogan to the area. In 1939, the Chamber took advantage of the 1939 Pageant of the Pacific and the New York World's Fair to approve a $5,000 advertising budget, which would be $93,000 in 2020 dollars, to be spent on a campaign titled Visit Reno on the Way. It was advertised nationally that if you were going to either the World's Fair in New York or the Pageant of the Pacific, you could stop in Reno along the way and discover the abundant beauties and attractions of a cosmopolitan city that truly justifies the claim to be the biggest little city in the world. Ideally situated in fertile meadows on the banks of the Truckee River, surrounded by the majestic Sierra Nevada mountains, serving as the industrial, financial, and distribution center of a vast area and possessing business, cultural, and recreational advantages unparalleled anywhere. This little brochure also used the metropolis of 100,000 square miles when it said, geographically and figuratively, Reno is the metropolis of 100,000 square miles of opportunity and charm. This is what the city looked like in 1938. This is showing Virginia Lake going north towards the downtown. And this is an aerial view of the city again. This was in the brochure, Visit Reno Along the Way. So you can see, I don't know if you can see my pointer here, you can see the state building that was built for the Transcontinental Highway Exposition, the post office, the Riverside Hotel, and the courthouse, and the Virginia Street Bridge. So what happened in the 1940s? Well, they were still advertising. It was still being, Reno was still being advertised as a year-round vacation destination, and they had added a lot more recreational activities: hunting, fishing, boating, skiing, golfing, swimming, sightseeing, and tennis. The Chamber was saying that Reno was a good place, still a good place for business to relocate or start up. And in the 1940s, well, actually beginning in 1935, the Chamber started advertising Nevada's tax advantages. It also began to advertise the city's nightlife and entertainment, but it would not mention gaming as such. It said that you could spend your days sightseeing or attending sporting events, and then at night enjoy the nightlife, dancing, and entertainment, and great restaurants that were in Reno. So this is what the city looked like in 1947, what was being advertised in. You can see that the Mapes Hotel is being built here, the Hotel Riverside. A billboard that tells about the Nevada tax advantages went up in about 1935, where they were saying that there's no income tax, no sales tax, no inheritance tax, no corporation tax, or no gift tax. And an important fact that Nevada is a debt-free state. This program, it was being advertised to the very wealthy. It could be called at some point as a millionaire hunting promotion to get the very wealthy to move to Nevada. Two booklets that were written in 1939 and again in 1941, Nevada, the Last Frontier, that was used as a slogan in about 1935, told about the tax advantages available to potential residents. This little brochure, which was published in 1941, I don't know if you can see it here, published in 1941 and was sent throughout the country into the late 1940s, was written by or produced by Thomas C. Wilson in 1940-41. He uses the old slogan and modifies it a bit. You'll like living in Reno, for you'll like Reno. He also used the 100,000 square miles of opportunity when he said, but he modified that too, that there are 110,000 square miles of ranches, mines, mills, lumber camps, and resorts. So he modified that and was closer to the actual size and had many different types of opportunities that you could have. He said about the weather, the air is dry, crisp, and invigorating. It is difficult to find a more healthful, more comfortable, or more invigorating climate than that prevailing in Reno and Nevada. He did make one statement that is interesting about gaming and divorces. Reno is distinctly adult in its philosophy of minding your own business as long as you hurt no one else. You can't help to have a grand time. He did talk about recreation, and he said that there were at least 10,000 square miles of superb ski terrain await you. This magnificent winter sports empire is within a few minutes of Reno over excellent highways. In 1949, the city began advertising for conventions. Although conventions had been in the city in the 1920s, they really made a point of advertising for conventions. This one is a convention at the Riverside Hotel with the Nevada Republican Party. The elephant is Mona the elephant, who was part of a circus that was in town. It was thought that Reno would be an ideal convention city, and they thought that conventions were the best way to get people to come to Reno. In 1946, the chamber joined with Herald's Club in putting billboards throughout the country, and this billboard, You'll Like Reno billboard, was in at least 30 states. We think that Raymond I. Smith probably donated $20,000 to the chamber for these billboards that went up. The billboards were designed by Thomas C. Wilson. The printing was in yellow and they were in a red background, and they did not show gaming at all, but they showed the recreation that was available. They have a skier on one end, a cowboy on the other, and along the bottom, although you really can't see that on this billboard, would be pictures of Pyramid Lake, Lake Tahoe, Carson City, Virginia City. The arch, I think, is right there. So the arch is there. And this one we saw early on. This was another one of Herald's Club billboards that they did with the chamber on a barn. This was in Clackamas County, which is Oregon, which is near Portland. Another billboard that was put up, again with the help of Herald's Club, was the Fly to Reno billboard. These were done with Fly to Reno from Los Angeles, Fly to Reno from Seattle, Fly to Reno from San Francisco. They tell you how long it takes you to get to Reno from Los Angeles, which in 1949 would have been 190 minutes. They show the skyline of Reno, and along the top, magnificent scenery along the way. And this is what the city looked like in the 1940s. At the end of the 1940s, this is the Veterans Administration Hospital, which was built in 1947. Now, what was the economic impact of all of this advertising by the end of the 1940s? In 1948, Reno had 1,441 motel rooms and 3,100 rooms in hotels and rooming houses. In that year, in 1948, 3.5 million tourists came to Reno by automobile, 96,000 came by bus, 34,908 came by airplane, with a total of a little over 3.6 million people came to Reno in 1948. Also, if you're talking about conventions, in 1948, conventioners spent $527,287.50. It was thought that conventioners would stay at least 3 days in Reno, and each guest would spend about $37.50 per day. So that's a little bit more than the $10.15 in 1920. It was also thought that one convention dollar spent in the city would change hands at least 26 times per year. Just so you'll know how much money the chamber got from the city and county, the chamber got from Washoe County $17,367.81 from Washoe County, and about $3,000 from the city of Reno for their advertising promotion. So in the 1950s, at the end of the 1940s, the chamber hired a professional publicity person. So in the 1950s, they really started doing a lot more brochures. And the slogans they had, we had fun in Reno. In 52, everyone's in Reno now. Reno welcomes you in 1958. Another gateway slogans, gateway to the 1961 Olympics, which we'll talk about in a little bit more. And in 1959, Reno, the capital of Sierra winter sports. So the brochures that they published in the 1950s were called the Hospitality Series of Brochures. And they did several of them. This is one that was again done by Thomas C. Wilson Advertising Company, and it was drawn by probably Mel Mathewson, who was the art director at the time. This one was done each year, and inside was a map to Reno's fun area, which was with driving directions for daytime tours. So they were really, the chamber was really advertised that you could go out and see a variety of things and then come back and at night to the cosmopolitan area and sophistication of the casinos and restaurants. They did, on this one, they did talk about or showed dancing. Although you can't really see it on this little map because the pictures are upside down. So they showed all sorts of recreation. They showed, here it is right here, recreation. They showed dancing. They showed showgirls. And there were at least three different ones of this Reno Fun Center of the West. This one talked about Reno, and it said, you'll find so many things to enjoy in Reno, such fascinating places all around this fabled little city. Pick the most sophisticated spots if you choose, or the folksiest family-style places, or the colorful charm of the Old West, or the quiet appeal of a little college town. All of these await you in Reno. So that means there were all sorts of things that you could see in Reno. They did have one where to stay in Reno that they published every year with a guide to hotels, motels, and guest ranches. They did not call them divorce ranches in these little brochures. They had where to eat in Reno, and this was published every year. The where to eat said, for nearly a century, Reno has been a crossroads of the world where travelers of the far corners of the earth could meet and congregate. The result has been a truly cosmopolitan community in which the finest foods of all nations are made available. So they were really promoting Reno as being very sophisticated, very cosmopolitan, and very glamorous. This brochure, again, it was one of the hospitality series brochures, advertising the Reno Ski Bowl, and along the top, only 20 miles from Reno's glamorous accommodations and fun. Of skiing, they said the slopes can accommodate 5,000 skiers at a time with downhill runs of 7.5 miles. Now this one, I have showed this one on other programs that I've had, and I just showed this because I like it so much. This was put out in 1952, February of 1952, during the snowstorms of February 1952, and this was sent to Bay Area newspapers to tell the people that the roads were open, the snow had stopped falling, the Greyhound buses were running, the airplanes were running, and you could drive your car over Highway 40 and get to Reno. The problem with this promotion is as soon as it was published in the newspapers, it started snowing, the roads were closed, the airplanes stopped flying, and you couldn't get to Reno. But anyway, this is a great little ad, I think. This was another one of Mel Mathewson's ads. And in 1955, we all know that the Winter Olympics Squaw Valley was selected as the place for the 1960 Winter Olympics. And Reno started the slogan, Gateway to the 1960 Winter Olympics. Reno would be the place where many of the visitors to the Olympics would come in order to get up to Squaw Valley. Reno had the biggest airport, and so many people would fly in. So from 55 to about to when the Olympics occurred, advertising was geared towards the visitors of the Olympics. This is one of the recreational brochures that they had again on skiing. Apparently in 1958, there were 8 ski resorts that were 59 miles from Reno. In the 1970s, apparently there were 16 ski resorts that were within an hour's drive of Reno. But this is again geared towards the Olympic visitor. And this is what Virginia Street looked like in 1955. You'll see the Mapes Hotel down here on one end and the Club Calneva on the other. An aerial view of Reno in the 1950s. And so, as I mentioned before, the airport was renovated for the 1960 Olympics. The airport had signs, welcome to the 1960 Winter Olympics in multiple languages. There were Western cowboys and Nevada Indians in native dress that met travelers coming into Olympic travelers coming into Reno. The Mapes Hotel was designed as the official press hotel. The Holiday was for Olympic officials, and the Riverside was the entertainment hotel. Hotels and casinos were decorated and with welcoming flags, and some gave their Olympic guests survival kits. Tickets for the Olympics were sold at local businesses. It was estimated that 170,000 people would come to Reno during that 10-day event, and it was hoped that each and every one of these visitors would return to the Reno area after the games. You probably know who these people are. Don Wells, the 1959 Miss Nevada, and Terry Huntington, the 1959 Miss USA greeted people as they came to the Reno airport. This picture, you have Jane Mansfield as she was coming to the airport with Don Wells again and Terry Huntington. Terry Huntington was named as the chamber by the chamber as the official hostess. This is the Herald's Club with their welcoming sign for the Olympics in 1960. So these are some of the slogans that we used in 1960. In Reno, it's fun time all the time. Any season is fun in Reno. Another gateway slogan, Reno, the gateway to the West. Two worlds of Reno, Greater Reno, the hub of the West. And another gateway slogan, Reno, gateway to wonders. In 1963, as we know that in 1950, they started advertising Reno as a convention center. And finally, in 1965, Reno got a Centennial Coliseum. Conventioneers were said to spend at least $42 per day. They usually stayed for 3 days. They liked coming to Reno because of the short distances between hotel and motel rooms and meeting rooms, because of the Reno weather, and because of the unique attractions of Lake Tahoe and Virginia City, and of course because of gambling. The Centennial Coliseum was built for $7 million. It opened in 1965 and it had 79,697 square feet of exhibit space. This is one of the big conventions that was held in 1974, is the Sierra Cascade Logging Convention. A smaller convention center was the Pioneer Theater, whose first convention was the Nevada Democratic Party with 800 people. The chamber began selling and promoting tour packages in 1963, and the first tour package was the Fun Train. What the Fun Train would do would leave Oakland Railroad Station at 6 p.m. on Friday, and it would arrive in Reno early Saturday morning, and it would return to the Bay Area on Sunday. The Fun Train had a dance floor, bar, and lounge, and featured a buffet. The first picture is on the Fun Train to Reno in 1963. The second one, you can see how styles have changed into the 1970s. It was said that at least from 1963 to 1970, 26,448 people had danced their way to Reno on the Fun Train. In 1974, the price was $69.95 per person for double occupancy. What the Fun Train did was it allowed people from Northern California, and that was the market area for Reno, to come during the winter months when travel was difficult over Highway 40 or even Highway 80, US 80. This is a little brochure that was done in the 1960s. Reno, it's fun time all the time. A map that's inside that brochure and tells you all the things that you can do while you're in Reno. 24-hour excitement, entertainment, summer fun, winter sports, family fun, recreation unlimited. And this is what the city looked like in the 1960s. And an aerial view of downtown in 1967. According to statistics in 1963, 30% of tourists came for recreation, entertainment, and gaming. 25% came for trade, business, and work. 12% for outdoor recreation and scenic attractions. 59.7% of visitors came to Reno and Lake Tahoe in 1963 from California. In 1960, conventioners spent $3,194,176. By 1966, conventioners were spending a little over $4 million. In 1963, 8.7 million motorists visited Reno and Lake Tahoe. Air passengers totaled 340,442, bus passengers 821,100, and train passengers 35,400, for a total in 1963 of 9.8 million visitors. So in 1970, the Chamber advertising and promotion fell into three categories. They were advertising general images to entice potential vacationers to Reno, Lake Tahoe. Tourism was the primary target. They were advertising package tour advertising for specific tours, and they're advertising for conventions. Winter sports were advertised in the late 1960s and 70s through the Discover America Traveling Showcase, where they said there were 16 major ski resorts within 1 hour's drive from Reno that had more than 80 lifts, numerous rope tows, traversing 35 miles of runs and trails. So here are some of the slogans that were used. In the 1970s, they started using, in the late 1960s, they started using the slogan, Think Reno, and they modified it many different times. Think Reno, always good thinking. Think Reno, think fun, think excitement. Think Reno, think vacation land. They did use the slogan, stay an extra day. Again, they were saying, come to Reno, stay an extra day. You can go out and visit all sorts of other places, but come back and stay an extra day. If you remember what happened in 1973, gasoline, there's enough in Reno. Again, Reno, just a gas tank away. That was just for Northern California visitors. Here are many of the Think Reno brochures that were done in the 1970s. And they're also advertising with the Big Bertha. Big Bertha was considered the biggest slot machine in the world. It was first used in 1964 at the World's Fair in New York. There was quite a controversy about whether the handle could be pulled because of the, you couldn't advertise gambling. And finally, I think it was the New York Supreme Court decided that the handle could be pulled, and it was pulled at least 5,000 times a day throughout the New York World's Fair in '64. After '64, the Big Bertha was taken all over the country to advertise Reno. What you would win if you pulled the handle is some sort of casino giveaway. You would get decks of cards, you would get dice, you would get matchbooks, you would get sometimes you would get as much as a champagne bottle. You may win a tour package. And these are some of the tour packages that were being sold in the 70s. Think Reno, Think Fun Flight, it was $24.90 in 1971. The Think Reno, this one showed all the various recreational activities you could participate in. This is another one in '74, I believe, that showed the entertainers that would be here. In 1968, the Judd Allen, who was the manager of the Chamber of Commerce, made Lauren Green and Michael Landon of the Bonanza the official goodwill ambassadors for the Chamber. In '68, Dan Blocker went to Hawaii to advertise Reno to Hawaii travel agents. Michael Landon and Lauren Green would continue after Dan Blocker died in '72. Landon and Green were in a 7-minute film promoting the advantages of visiting the area. They were also in several PSA radio spots. Lauren Green said that the Cartwrights will do all they can to promote Reno, Carson City, Virginia City, and Lake Tahoe. At every opportunity in our work, our traveling, and personal appearances, we are going to be talking up your area and all the things for visitors to see and do. In 1965, actually, Petula Clark was named the honorary citizen of Reno, and Judd Allen again said, Miss Clark has provided Reno with national recognition through network television appearances prior to her Reno trip. I think this is a real cute little, this was a little bag that was filled with casino giveaways that was given to travel agents that came to Reno just for the fun of it. So how did Reno grow in the 1970s? J.C. Penney opened a 1.6 million square feet catalog distribution center instead that hired 1,500 people, that employed 1,500 people. Meadowood Mall opened in 1978 with Macy's and in 1979 with Liberty House. There was a buy local program that the chamber put on that was advertised that there was at least 40,000 free parking spaces in 28 shopping centers in Reno. If it's quality and selection you're looking for, we've got it. There were lots of casinos being built in the late 1970s. Here's the MGM. In 1969, William Harrah opened a 24-story hotel with 30,000 square feet convention hall in downtown Reno. By the end of the 1970s, a dozen new hotel casinos built or were in the works. Reno had doubled its hotel and motel rooms to approximately 20,000. The MGM boasted as being the largest casino in the world. And at the end of the 1970s, 10 million visitors had arrived in Reno by automobile, airplane, bus, or train. This is another picture of construction of a casino in Reno, the Sahara Reno, in 1977. That would be a 415-room, 47,000 square foot casino with 3 floors and underground parking. This photograph was used in a lot of entertainment advertisements for the Bay Area. This is in 1972. Events that could have brought people to Reno. In 1950, there was a Silver Spurs Award that was from 1950 to 1966. The first winner was John Wayne, who is in the center here, of course, between RJ and Margaret Flick. He's at the fairgrounds. He won in 1950 for his portrayal in She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. Here we have Gregory Peck and Governor Charles Russell in 1952. Gregory Peck won for his show, The Gunfighter. In 1966, another trophy, the Governor's Trophy, was given away. And this is Bob Newhart in 1977 with getting a trophy from Governor Michael Callahan. And this one is 1978 with Totie Fields, who is, if you don't know, this is Totie Fields here. She was a stand-up comedian. You had Roy Clark, who won the Governor's Award in 1981. Of course, Red Skelton, who won in 1975. John Esquaga is here, and this is the football coach. And I've just forgotten who Chris Alt. So I think that's the end. The air races came in 1964. They were said to have spent, visitors to the air races are said to have spent at least $1 million in Reno in 1969. In 1977, 40,000 visitors came to the Reno Rodeo, 50,000 to the air races. In 1978 and 1979, there were close to 11 million visitors to Reno. And I think that's it. So if you have any questions.
So there are a few questions. Thank you so much. It's a great program. You have so much material, I know. Well, I guess I'll start with my first one, and then I know we've got several questions.
Okay.
I think Reno brochure, you showed two together.
Right.
Was the one on the left, I guess, for me, view, was Dawn Wells. Was she on the cover?
No, she was not on the cover of that one.
Okay, but she kind of looks like her,
right.
with the
she
hair.
kind of looks like her. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was like, oh, if it is, she didn't mention it. So.
No, that was, I think I have her name, who it was, but I don't have it right off the top of my head. But this
no, that's no problem. Okay, one of the first questions we have is, what was the year the picture of the horse and rider jumping over the car? Do you know? And was that part of like the Harris collection or something? Or?
Well, that was in 1939, the 1939 rodeo, and they had a lot of specialty acts. Her name was, her last name was Sitsy, Sisty.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. And I have seen some other pictures of stunt riders, of photos in our collection. So, okay.
Yeah, that came from the Historical Society. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Another question is, in the marketing ad, you'll like living in Reno. There's lots of pictures. I know you've been doing so much research, but do you know some of the pictures of the buildings and homes that were on the brochure? Do you know if they're still in existence, or that's another sidebar, but.
Right, they are still in existence. There is one, on Urban Road, right by the golf course, and I think the one that is on, I think Patty Cafaretta may have lived there. The one that is on the end, Harps had a tour of that one. That one is still there, and that's the picture.
Okay.
Here. This one does have a picture of the Lear, which, before it was the Lear Theater, the church. And where is that? But some of the houses are still around.
That's what I was kind of thinking, but I couldn't quite tell. You were mentioning like the Wilson, Thomas Wilson marketing firm, did quite a bit of the artwork. A question was, did Robert Caples do any drawings for the chamber? I know he did one for like the rodeo, like the first rodeo brochure, but do you know of any that he might have done?
I don't know of any that he did. And it seems like he would probably have done some, but I know they used, Mel Mathewson did, all of those 1950 ones. While he was at Thomas, at the advertising agency from 50 to 60. So I know he was probably involved in most of those, but I don't know about Caples.
There's another question. It says, Joyce, I heard that the Silver Spur celebrities used to visit the Reno High School and talk with the students. Have you ever heard about that?
I haven't heard about that. It seems like something they would have done. I didn't mention, which is just kind of an aside, that there were 10-minute to 13-minute little short films that were done from 1950 to about 1955 that was shown in movie theaters throughout the U.S. to get people to come here for that, for the Silver Spurs. And I know the Historical Society does have some of those films, so it'd be great to show them.
Well, maybe we could get a little bit of money and get those converted. Those would be kind of a fun thing. Yeah.
They are fun to look at.
Well, yeah, I find it interesting who some of the big wigs were at the time that really participated in the Silver Spurs, you know, and who came to Reno that they celebrated. I have another question for you. Did the Santa Girl ad meet with Pappy Smith's approval? I would think that was a separate thing. Or did you mention that it was with Harold's Club too?
No, that wasn't necessarily with Harold's Club, and I really don't know. I know that no, I don't know.
Well, I thought that was an interesting question, you know, and I guess I have a question, or I thought this would lead to you talking a little bit more about the resources you found. I know, you know, you visited the Historical Society and you were searching all over for materials dealing with the chamber. Can you talk a little bit about where you found quite a few? Because didn't you buy things from like eBay and some other locations as you were researching?
I bought several things from eBay, and it seems like there isn't just one spot where all the chamber records are. The Historical Society certainly has a lot of the chamber records. They have newsletters, and the State Library has many of the newsletters going back into the 60s and 70s. So I used a lot of those. The brochures are kind of scattered around at special collections, at the Historical Society, at the State Library. I did go to the chamber itself, and they had a few records there. Actually, they had a big box of records, which was really very good and very interesting. It was really a fun thing to do. So it was, and the Washoe County Library, when I first started, and that was probably about 6 years ago, had a great vertical file collection on the chamber. That
really?
was by decade, and I'm not sure if they still have that, but I was able to go in and look at that, and that was really quite fun. And then I used a lot of newspapers.
I was gonna say, there definitely was a lot they promoted in the papers.
Right,
There's another question. Does the Chamber of Commerce still do advertising for Reno? I know you've had, when you've done a talk, you know, I know the Chamber came to one of the HARP's programs and kind of talked about what they do, but can you talk a little bit about what the Chamber kind of does still today?
So, the Chamber, they don't really promote Reno as such. In 1976-77, RSCVA, I don't think that's what it was called then, but that was the Fair Board. And the Chamber had kind of a disagreement. And the disagreement, with that disagreement, the RSCVA pulled all of their room tax money from the Chamber. So that meant that they had to change their focus. And their focus now is, and you know, which is that they support businesses in the area. They still have brochures that they give out. They don't produce any brochures, but they support the businesses actually in all of Northern Nevada. It's not just specific to Reno itself. You know, they support businesses throughout Northern Nevada and can even go into Northern California.
Okay. I thought that they kind of had changed over time, but
Right.
That's interesting to know that. Okay. Do you, Joyce, can you, oh, I guess another thing, you've been working on this for a long time. Can you tell everybody how long you've been working on? I mean, You,
Um,
like Neal mentioned, you actually, have written such a complete resource guide that we'll be having that to help people with research. But then your book is a different, more pictorial version. How long have you been working on this project?
I think I've been doing it. Oh, it seems like it's been forever, but actually, I think I've been doing it for at least 6 years, I think.
I knew it'd been a while, but you've really unearthed so much, and I think people will really appreciate the book, and you
Oh,
truly are, I
sure.
think, the expert on the chamber. Well, thank you, Joyce. This is wonderful. Neal, do you have any final thoughts? This was a wonderful program, and thank you, everybody, for coming today and um, listening and getting past our little glitch. Good job, Joyce.
Yeah, that was,
Made
sorry
your heart
about,
stop just for a brief moment there, but
yes. Yes,
do
it
you have
did.
any final thoughts or anything you want to mention?
Just a big hearty thank you for all of the work that she's done. And I've already had a chance to go through the rough on the book. In its first class, they was able to cover a huge amount of things and still get it into a smaller package, unlike what is available up at the Historical Society. I believe that she started on the book in 2017. We had the other lady working on it about a year before that. And she just says, geez, this is just overwhelming. Those people did
It
so
was.
much. Yeah, he says, is there any possible way that we could get somebody else to do it that could really go after it? And of course, Joyce's name came up. She was all complete with the Sparks book. And we knew with the writings that she had done with the book on Washoe County. And of course, the Sparks book itself, which is a real nice one. You ought to check it out. These are all done by Joyce. And the way she can research, and just like a little beaver, she gets, there is no branch that's hiding anything back from this lady. She just is so dedicated to what she does and so thorough.
Well, that's the librarian in her for sure.
Yeah, it's got to be the librarian. I think it's awkward to read a lot of things when you're doing a program. She had done one that was completely different for us at Ollie, and that was stand up and where you're talking directly to the audience. A lot more comfortable place to do a presentation. But what's happened in this day and age, she just did a hell of a job. I mean, I love this gal. She's just absolutely an inspiration. So my words are all of compliment because I know how hard she has worked for us.
Well, thank you.
Definitely. Well, I think we'll throw it back to Samantha and the library. And thank you, as always, Washoe County Libraries, for helping us bring interesting topics about Nevada history to everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Sherry Hazorn, Neal Cobb, and Dr. Joyce Cox with the Nevada Historical Society, and Russell, our Washoe County Library Tech Wizard, for making this event possible today. Don't forget to sign up for the next live event with the Nevada Historical Society on Thursday, March 18th at 12 p.m. The topic again will be the history of model dairy by Neal Brooks. To sign up, please visit events.washoecountylibrary.us. If you want to see what's coming up, visit us at events.washoecountylibrary.us, where you can also access and download our Virtual Explorer, a publication listing of all our virtual events and resources. All right, you guys, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.